Hi, this is Ann Whitmore with Boldly Being Me, where women gather, grow, and boldly become our best selves. Today I welcome Jolynne Anderson. Hi, Jolynne.
Hi, Anne.
Jolynne is a professional certified coach, certified through the International Coach Federation, and she's the owner and president at the coaching company Beyond the Fences. She's also a leader and coach trainer in Accomplishment Coaching Coach Training Program. Jolynne has provided coaching and coach training across the United States and Malaysia for almost 10 years. So I'm so glad that you joined us.
Oh, thank you so much for calling me and having me on.
Yeah. So I have a pretty specific reason that I was drawn to do this interview with you. And I'm curious about what I perceive to be a pretty significant transformation that I've seen in you. So, you and I know this, the people who are listening don't, so I'll give some background. You and I met when I was a mentor coach in the Accomplishment Coach Training Program about, what was it, like 9 years ago, 10 years ago?
Yeah.
It
was 2008, 2009.
Okay.
I think.
And
yeah.
My experience, I went through as a participant, and then when you were going through, I was a mentor coach. And my experience is that accomplishment coaching, coach training, is a pretty challenging coach training program. And it's really a personal development program as much as it is a coach training program. So it really encourages participants to step up and boldly be their best selves. And I remember when I was going through it as a participant, my friends made fun of me because I spent the year, I was like the scribe. I kept my head down and I took notes for a year so that I didn't have to, because it was intense. I was scared. And my perception of you, a year or two later, I was a mentor coach for a couple of years. And when you came through as a participant, my perception of you was that you were pretty shy, maybe, somewhat like me when I was going through the program. So I moved on after being a mentor coach, and I lost track of you. And I looked back a few years later, just recently, and you're leading this incredibly high caliber, challenging coach training program. What happened?
Yes. Oh, I love that you identified me as shy. The thing that I realized is, I really wanted to minimize and be invisible and not be seen, because I thought it was pretty scary to be, seen. And, I was definitely, nobody would describe me now as shy. So I just think that's great.
Oh, I love that.
Gosh.
So you felt that you just wanted to be, tell me more about being invisible in that room.
Yeah, well, and in life too, it was something that I learned early on, to be invisible, then you wouldn't get in trouble. So I think it was just a habit that I created. And the other thing is, I didn't even know what to say. One of the, I look at my beautiful self back then, and I didn't even know really who I was. So, you asked me what happened, and it's like, well, all the layers got peeled off, and I really, got to, reconnect to my true authentic self and be able to, love all parts of me, my dark sides, my light sides, my silly side, my voice, all of that. So, I think about who I was when you saw me and who I am now, and I'm the same person, but I just love all of me, and I know all parts of me, I guess is the best way to say it. Okay. And I'm not afraid to be seen either.
So I'm going to ask the same question. What happened? I mean, what got you to the point where from where you felt like being invisible was the way to stay safe, to this point where you're saying, I love all parts of me, even the dark side, the silly side?
Well, one, the training program happened. They, for that, they see you and they basically call you forth to be seen. So I think that was kind of the pivotal point for me. And, obviously I'm a coach, but I also had worked with my own coach. So I think that was part of it. And really a commitment to myself to just be me, like give myself permission to be able to, boldly be me. I think that's the title of your show,
Yeah.
but it's like, for me to be able to say, this is who I am, I am not the shy girl. I am somebody that I just love life, love people, very outgoing type of person. So,
Wow. So
I was just trying to think about, what happens? Well, I think it actually first becomes a choice, like really choosing to be committed to yourself and be committed to living your life on purpose, and living your life purpose, and then doing the work to, get those things out of the way that are in the way.
So what caused it not to be unsafe for you to start being seen?
That's a great question. I think it's just little steps. Like as I, started coming out of my shell and realizing, the tiger wasn't chasing me, like fear is like, oh my God, we're going to get in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then I started not getting in trouble. It was like, oh, I can be me. So I think I keep coming back to choice, but I think it was a choice and a commitment to practice being boldly me. Like one of the practices my first coach gave me was to fill up space. Like I would go into Starbucks and they would, I think they ask you your name, and I would just say Joe, because Jolynne is a long name and people always ask it like 3 times to get it right. And so I had shrunk. And so I just say Joe. Mm-hmm. And my coach said, hey, slow down, spell the name, get a whole table to yourself, just really give yourself permission to be on the planet, boldly you, and practice it. I don't know if that answers your question.
It does. Well, and yeah. I think it really does. I mean, I'm really glad that you gave an example, which the other thing is that I think my whole life I've always wanted things to be like, okay, so give me the answer. It's black and white, and just give me the answer, and then, the next day life can be transformed. Well, that's not how it goes. And what you said is, right. It's just one choice by next choice by another choice. I mean, you could make a big choice to start heading in a different direction, and then it's just take another step.
Right.
Step. Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot has to do with your thinking, kind of your mindset. I talked about a couple, me shrinking and that kind of thing. And my grandparents were born and, raised kind of in the Depression. And so what was passed down in legacy with my parents and then on to me was to, suffer and, like it's noble to suffer. It's noble to sacrifice. Mm-hmm. And that things are, not enough. There's limits. And so that belief system was also passed on to me. And so it was like, okay, don't be too big. Don't be too whatever. Shrink, be minimal. And there was just something in me that was not that. Like I really got that was their motto and their, what worked for them during that time. But I am a girl and a woman now that's totally expressed that believes in possibility and abundance and, all of these things. So I was out of integrity in a way, which brings me to, I think the other pivotal point was because I was living like that, like what my grandparents and parents told me to live by, I was out of integrity in my body. I was kind of living everybody else's expectations. And then I ended up gradually getting sick. I don't even know if you know that. I think it was right before we met. And there was a lot of like immune system things, and the doctors could not figure out what was, they couldn't put a name to it. And what I know today is, and I'm not sick anymore, so that's really awesome. But what I know is it was because I wasn't living a life that was mine. I was living somebody else's life. It was all the rules and the expectations of, the people around me. And once I made the decision to be boldly me and take that on, I really got to, get back into who I am and back in alignment, which it's so delicious.
Oh my gosh. And I think it's so intriguing. I didn't even know that your mission was so aligned with the mission of our online community of Boldly Being Me, but it sounds like that's exactly what's happened when I say that you went from who I perceived as being a quiet, shy person who didn't take up much space to all of a sudden, it's like, wait a minute, she can't be the leader of this program.
Yes. Yeah. And that's part of it. My passion is to bring out everyone's true self. Like it's like, can you imagine a planet where everyone is just authentically them and doing what they love and are passionate about? Like that's my mission in life. It's like, it's gonna be, it might take my whole lifetime, but it's gonna be a cool world to live in.
Wow. Oh my gosh, that is just so cool. And I do marvel that, as I was saying to you right before we started, I can tell the difference just in the first 2 sentences on the call. I could tell, oh my gosh, your voice is bigger. It's stronger. It's, it's just a more robust voice than
thank you.
I remember. Yeah, it's very intriguing to me.
And I love the reflection. Like it gives me goosebumps, for that. Thank you so much. It's like,
it's really fun because it really was like I just looked away and then I looked back a few years later and oh my gosh, what happened to her? So let me ask you a little bit, we've gotten a little bit of a sense of your philosophy in the work that you do as a coach, but you and I are Facebook friends, and I noticed in preparation for this discussion some interesting things that you've posted on Facebook. So I'd love to ask you about them if that's okay.
Oh, sure.
So there is a quote that you put on Facebook a while back that is, maybe the journey isn't so much about becoming anything. Maybe it's about unbecoming everything that isn't you, so you can be who you were meant to be in the first place. Tell me about that.
Oh, I just got emotional.
That's a sign of deep truth, don't you think?
Yeah, it is. I just got, as you were saying the quote again, I was like, this is, So truly, every cell in my body believes that quote. And I think I even mentioned it before. It's like the juiciness of people coming back to themselves. A lot of I mean, I can speak for myself. Like, I grew up and like not enough, that of course that was passed down to me.
That you
And it's,
perceived yourself as not enough, or the world?
yeah, I did. Well, all of it, like that was the lens that I was looking through. And what I get is that we all are enough, you know, we, what do I want to say about that? Yeah, for me, it was, I had the belief that I wasn't enough.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm really present to is there's nothing to fix. There's nothing wrong. All there is for us to be us in the world. It's, yeah, and I want to share that with everybody. Like, the journey is just to be us and surrender to who we are and honor who we are, and to be proud of who we are versus all the, limited stories or beliefs or things that have, come across our path. Oh, I don't know if I answered your question, but
Well, I just had this image when you were talking about that. If we were to look at a baby, and we see that baby as perfect, having all that, I mean, there, we will obviously provide support to that baby in this lifetime, but as far as having the essence of a healthy human being, it's all there.
yeah.
Then in your philosophy, what shifts, or what shifted for you from that point to as you got older and you became something other than who you were?
Yeah. I, as life happens, our little, beautiful brains start making decisions. And they make decisions, at 4 and 5 and probably before that. But, our view of the world then is, again, I'll speak for myself, is, my grandparents and my parents are, the answer to all answers. And they, of course, they know everything. So as I was going through life, I was taking on their stories and their beliefs, which is, great. It helps me, and as I was going through, and, getting some amazing teachers, I was somebody that, really I had this thing that I wanted to, make other people happy, and I wanted to be I call it like the people pleaser, part of me. And I lost in that evolution, I lost like who I was. It was definitely focused of, trying to perform or prove or people please other people. And in that process, I, not consciously, of course, I, started to become what other people wanted me to become. Yeah, I think that's part of, we make these decisions as we keep growing. And that was kind of my story, or my decisions I made during that time.
Yeah. And when you think about a 4-year-old who is reprimanded for interrupting, or, that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, for me, I was very vocal as a young, little one. I was very, that's why I laughed about you saying I was shy. I was very expressive, and I loved everything, and I was in wonderment, and my, my parents would say, "Be seen, not heard." Jolynne, be quiet. You need to be seen, not heard.
Oh, wow.
And so that's probably part of that, that shyness, like, oh, and inside me, I was like, yeah, but I got all this stuff I want to say. And so it's just even those statements of, that we as children are like, oh, I got to be seen and not heard. I better follow directions. Because then, then they're going to be happy. I'm going to please them if I'm, seen and not heard.
And so you had a choice between your independence and being, what your natural inclination was to be seen, not heard, versus
Right.
to be safe and loved and to please your parents. And
exactly.
the latter.
Yeah. 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 And, we all, my thing is, I don't blame my parents. I was probably out and about and other people needed to, be talking or whatever.
Yeah.
But it was, as they gave those messages to me, that was the decision I personally made.
Sure.
It wasn't, yeah.
not like they ruined you or something, but it was how you interpreted and implemented that information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it worked, it totally worked for me.
For many years.
Yes.
You used to be a government worker, huh?
Yes. Yes. I, part of the expectations, or the story that my parents gave me was, you've got to get a steady job and you've got to make sure it has insurance. And, and I live in the state capital of Washington State, so I'm in Olympia. And of course, state government is here. So it was totally expected that I would get a state job. Mm-hmm. And I did that. I did what it was expected. And then, as I'm growing and evolving, this is when I started getting sick, that I talked about. I mean, I got sick where I was because I had to prove, that I was good enough and I had to perform. And here I am really sick, and I have like an IV bag at one point that I'm going to work in because I had to perform and be great. And, that was one of those pivotal moments that I thought, what the heck am I doing? Wait a minute, it's like, and I think that was one of the points where I decided, I'm going to take my health in my own hands and my life in my own hands, and I'm going to figure this out. And, started really studying the brain and the body and the mind, and, stumbled over coaching.
And the rest is history.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
It's awesome. My state job was awesome. I don't want to, talk ill of it. It was provided. It was great. And then to take the big leap, and, go out and be an entrepreneur, which is exactly what I was born to do. Like my heart, it is, I am an entrepreneur. It was like, oh yeah.
My mom and dad may not have been, but hey, this is my life.
Yeah. Well, the funny part was they were.
Were they?
Yes. But because they were, and they had the ups and downs of income, what they were preaching to me was, you better get a steady job, steady income, steady any of those, And so they were saying it as, of course, love and support for me because they experienced the ups and downs as entrepreneur.
Yeah, I know. We as parents do our best, don't we, to protect our children from what we went through. Would you be willing to share with us what your toughest life challenge has been?
Well, I had one this last year. Geez, I don't even know where to start. So in 2015, I went through grief, and it was an extensive, in my mind, extensive amount of grief. I had 5 people that were very close to me pass away. From a father-in-law that lived with us to, best friend that was in our wedding, to a nephew that committed suicide on my side of the family, to another nephew that also committed suicide.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And that the year kept going. You know, my husband ended up almost dying during this year. He was in the hospital for a month. To my dad having brain surgery, actually 2 of them. So it was like, exactly. Like it was a lot to be with. Yeah. And I was really resisting grief at the beginning. You know, I was kicking into trying to operate over the top of it, trying to perform. And, you know, grief's kind of funny. It's like, nope.
Yeah.
So it was very challenging for me. And one of the beautiful things that I got out of that, one of many actually, out of that this last year, is my new relationship to spirit, you know, my new evolution to spirituality. Once I was able to really surrender and let go of how I think I should be or how it should go, everything, you know, like everything became, I don't even know what the right words are. Yeah, it was really allowing me a couple of things. I needed to up level myself with support, and putting my own oxygen mask on during grief.
Yeah.
Like I say, get support, get help. I mean, I coach people on it all the time. But it was the only thing I really needed to do. Yeah. And once that happened, I was, you know, once I surrendered and was being with the grief and allowing me to cry spontaneously and then, you know, still operate in life, it just gave me a whole nother level of love and spirituality. I don't know if that answers your question.
So did you stop the performing kind of old way of being during the course of that grieving period?
The first probably 3 or 4 months, no. I kept trying to perform, and that didn't go so well. I was like, you know, I was like, yeah. And I think once I realized, you know, because it's a lot of things when you're in grief, you don't even know what you're doing other than reacting to things.
Right.
But I did in the middle of it. I'm like, wow, I'm trying to pretend like everything is okay. Mm-hmm. And it's not serving me anywhere. No. I just need to embrace that I'm going through grief. And during that time, I did, I kind of, what do I call it? Because all I could do was kind of, you know, bring myself in and in a sense survive what was happening. Yep. I just couldn't pay attention to anything or anybody else.
You turned inward?
I did. Mm-hmm. And with that inward was that next elevation of spirituality. You know, I needed to really reconnect at the next level on, you know, all parts of me again. It was almost like a reinvention of myself. So I didn't know it at the time, of course, but it was, really look at all the things that I needed to do for me to get through this period of time. And, you know, I always talk about, you need to get support or you need to, in which, you know, I've had a breakthrough in that, but this level of support was a whole new level of breakthrough. And the support also included spirituality.
And when you say support, what do you mean?
Well, emotional support. I mean, even things as little as asking people, hey, can you bring me a meal on Thursdays? And being that vulnerable, that like or I would call my best friend and I would say, because at the same time I'm taking care of my body and my health, but my brain couldn't even figure out what to eat. So I'd be at the hospital, with my husband, and I'd call my best friend and I'd be like, all I need you to do is tell me what to eat. And she'd be like, okay, go get this, and this, So just surrendering, really, that I didn't have to have it all handled, that I didn't, that I could reach out and ask for different types of support. And the other support that I talked about it is support from spirit. We would be at the hospital and I would go out and walk, and around the hospital and that kind of thing. And I would really just ask for, any guidance, any support, anything. And it was beautiful because different things showed up and appeared, that were, so supportive that I don't know if I would have just surrendered and just said, here we are. This is what we've got. So I think I got a little off track. But
No. Oh my gosh, that's just amazing. Ugh.
Yeah.
And I think so often we as women really are, or at least I can say about myself, asking for support is really a challenge. And I'm most comfortable having it all together. I got it handled.
Yes.
Doesn't matter what I'm going through. Don't worry, I got it, and I've joked with people sometimes that it's like, I can do like the word performing that you've been using is just intriguing to me. That's how I've always seen it. And sometimes I see myself when I'm in that performing mode as somebody who's doing the dun 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 dun, like I'm doing a dance and a song, like I feel like sometimes when I get into the role of, okay, now I'm supposed to be this way, and then I can just kind of turn it on and I can do the
right.
And it can become such an automatic thing.
Yes.
What I love so much is that you were able to see that, and you were put in a situation where, guess what? We're going to put you to a point where you can't do that. You've got 5 things you're balancing right now. You've got deaths. You've got a husband in the hospital. You've got a father having brain surgery. You're going through this emotional trauma. And it got you to the point where you had to surrender. And look at what happened as a result of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I did. I really did have to surrender, and I've got my kids, and, the hospital that her dad was in was the same one that her grandpa died at. And so then that was re-triggering things. So I had to be with her. And the performance thing, I love that you brought that up because, as women, and I'll, like I said, I'll speak for myself, I can manage a lot.
Yeah.
I have, lots of hats, from mother to, business owner to wife to, all of those roles. And when I'm operating at my, optimum level, we as women can, we can handle a lot.
Yeah.
And what I get is, if we're doing it, from performing, it's just not the healthiest place.
No, it ends up exhausting, doesn't it?
It's exhausting. Yeah. And then that's when we get sick, and, that's a whole, probably another podcast. But, it's for me to surrender that I had, all these elements together, and, I didn't. I just really needed lots of love and support during that time. But it took me a while to ask for it. I mean, I'll be transparent. It wasn't like I have it all handled. And as soon as the first priest came,
yeah. So one thing you said was when you're doing it from the perspective of performing, it's exhausting. Just kind of to wind this up, tell me what the alternative to that is.
Yeah, I call it from ego, right? Because I had a business, I was leading a training program, and the performance that kicked in is I had to perform and be great, or like kick into that automatic, and then not share, be vulnerable about what was happening. I just couldn't even think about it. And as soon as I caught myself, I realized, the other place to come from is that, kind of like we started this program, is your authentic self and being real and vulnerable, and being your true essence. Like that performance and that ego side just couldn't exist during that last year. I had to just be me and be vulnerable and be like, hey, I can't do this. Can you support me in this? So does that answer your question between the two? Yeah.
So it's just a more, even though you knew like what needed to be done, what you chose to do instead was to just not to put yourself in high gear and make sure that you got it done, but instead just to be your vulnerable self and allow yourself to grieve or whatever it was that you were going through.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And get support.
Not easy
for
us.
No, it isn't. And getting support was not easy. That took me a lot of work and time to get to where I am today about, all the disempowering stories about needing to get support.
So was it the asking for support that was not easy or getting the support that was not easy?
Yes.
Asking for it and receiving it both?
Yes. Well, first asking, because there's a lot of story about, you should be able to handle this, and you're a strong woman, and, you've done all these different things. So I think first asking for it and then actually receiving that love and that support, that was, it was beautiful, absolutely beautiful to finally accept and surrender and allow it, which then just elevated me to a whole nother level of gratitude and love. And
I just had an image of somebody showing up at your door on Thursday night with dinner.
Yeah.
And what that must have felt like.
Yeah.
Just amazing.
It's so funny. And that's just one example of my breakthrough with support. Like once I was able to, really allow it, they say that saying love is everywhere, and it truly is everywhere. People they really do want to, support each other, and the communities, it's like people are waiting to be asked because they love to provide service too.
Yeah.
It's just a flow of love and support.
And the other thing is it's reassuring to know if I'm ever in a bind, look, this is great. I love bringing her dinner every Thursday night. And if I were in a bind like this, maybe people would do this for me too.
Yes.
Jolynne, thank you so much. I just really loved this. I'm amazed kind of that we reconnected, and it turns out I just get to hear this incredible story. So thank you so much for joining us.
And thank you, Anne, for doing this work and supporting all the women in your community. You truly are a gift. And it was such an honor to get your call and to rekindle our connection. It's just really beautiful.
It really was. So thanks, everyone. This was Jolynne Anderson with Beyond the Fences Coaching Company, based in Olympia, Washington, but she works with people all across the U.S. and Malaysia. So thanks so much, Well, Jolynne, appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Okay. We'll be in touch.
All right.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.